Our life expectancy in the U.S. went down for the first time.
Eat whatever you want, don't exercise for 6 months. You can't just say, okay, today I'm going to clean it up. Like, no, it doesn't work like that.
You are listening to EMS with your hosts, Erik Axene and Matt Ball.
All right, so we got a topic today that we're talking about. You're super passionate about. I mean, we're all passionate about health and wellness, but you're big on this kind of stuff.
Well, you know, it's not just us too, because I mean, even when you train, right? What's the first thing you're trained to do?
Oh, BSI Scene Safe. Yeah,
Taking care of yourself first, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's kind of subtle, but that's really what we're doing.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
if you're not taking care of yourself, you walk into a bad situation, you're not helping anybody.
That's right.
And then you're no longer an asset to the system.
That's right.
So we got to be careful with ourselves. And healthcare is we spend more money on healthcare in this country than anything else, even more than defense.
Yeah.
$17 trillion every year.
More than defense. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's
so
crazy.
It is huge. I mean, it's enormous.
Sure.
And why do we spend so much money on it? It's because health is important to us, right?
Sure.
But the problem is, I believe anyway, is that I think we don't really understand what health really means. Most of us, our body's an amazing healing machine, and we can kind of beat it up, and it just keeps going.
Oh, yeah.
But if we take good care of our body, and not just, you know, most people just think nutrition and exercise, right?
Right.
There are other dimensions of health which we're going to talk about today, just to introduce them.
Yep.
But I think if we have a better understanding of all of the different, I call them pillars of health, different dimensions of health. There are 6 of them.
Okay.
And if we really we don't have to fully grasp them, but if we appreciate them and respect them, I think we'll do a tremendous favor for our bodies in helping them to thrive and to live longer, longevity. We all want to live longer. But you know, none of us want to live in a nursing home till we're 90.
Right.
We've all been on those patients. It's like, this guy's 103, and it's like, I wouldn't want to live like that, you know?
Yeah, right. Nobody would, yeah.
When I was at Loma Linda, where I trained, it's one of the blue zones. People live in Loma Linda a standard deviation longer than the global mean, which means they just live a heck of a long time.
Right.
I don't know if you know this, Matt, but our life expectancy in the U.S. went down for the first time. And I think ever since we've been keeping track of it, our life expectancy's been going up, but it went down.
I think we could probably guess the reason for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are a lot of
factors. A lot of reasons. So
but I guess the thing I wanted to say was, you know, there's something about life where if you live and make decisions aligned with best practices, I mean, I think there's a best way to live. And I'm not here to tell anybody how to live.
Right.
I'm just looking at the data. I'm looking at, you know, my medical training. I'm looking at my experience, what I've read with literature, which, by the way, is very confusing. It seems like you could find literature to back up anything you want to say.
Yeah.
But I think there are low-hanging fruit out there that are just no-brainer type, all-cause mortality benefits out there in the literature, if you can find them, these pearls. And that's what I've tried to do to give everybody listening here some clarity in how they can live more healthy.
Yeah.
And I think you said this the other day, is we're all different.
Oh, yeah, everybody's different. And yeah, exactly. It's what works for me doesn't work for you, right? As far as, and that's in a lot of different ways, right? But one thing I wanted to say is that if you do like our content, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and in the link description, you will find a link to our website where we provide continuing education for first responders. And so we're talking about first responder health, 6 pillars of overall health and wellness, not just, you know, fitness, not just nutrition. It is overall like spiritual, emotional, mental, physical, all the different kinds of all the different pillars, as you call them. And you have an acronym that kind of fits these into a categories.
It's funny, actually. So I've spoken all over the country on this topic, and sometimes it's to a group of CEOs, business leaders. Sometimes it's firefighters. Sometimes it's
teachers,
physicians, teachers, whatever it might be. And the acronym actually started out as the word REST, R-E-S-T.
And we actually did a podcast
a
couple years ago about rest,
But as I learned more and more, and actually my brother actually inspired this acronym Thrive for me, and I thought it was brilliant. I'm like, man, I wish I would have talked to you, because there were certain things about the REST acronym that were really cool, and people loved hearing about it, and it was kind of like, wow, that's a unique perspective, and people really liked it. But the Thrive acronym, I think, fits better.
I like it better just when you think of the word thrive.
Yeah.
Like you want to thrive in life, right? That's,
You know, we joked about different ways to eat. You know, there's a lot of people that are vegetarian, vegan, plant-based, carnivore.
Macrobiotic,
Yeah.
Paleo, keto, all the things. Yeah.
Right. There's even the Kangatarians. Did you know about that?
We were
Kangaroo meat only?
Yes, you mentioned that the other day.
Pescatarians.
Yes.
It's like they'll eat any. They're like a vegetarian
But they'll eat
plus
fish, right?
fish. Yeah. Ovo-lacto-vegetarian, where they will eat eggs and milk. And you know, a true vegan, if you really are a true vegan, won't eat honey because it's made by an animal, and they won't wear leather. I mean, they're really strict philosophically with not wanting to harm animals, you know, and you know, I don't have any problem with that. It's just, these are different philosophies, realities, and whatever you want to do with the food that you take in, I think that's a personal preference type thing. I've talked to firefighters who, telling me to not eat meat is like telling a fish not to swim, you know, it's like
breathe underwater.
So I'm not saying don't eat meat, and I'm not saying that we all need to be plant-based, or I'm not saying that, you know, to the like the carnivore guys that are eating, you know, meat, butter, bacon, and eggs.
Yeah.
And that's it. You know, that you know, eating plants is evil, and you know, whatever. I mean, it's
right.
Everybody has their own philosophy, and to me, what I tried to do with my nutrition philosophy is I like to think of myself as a thalitarian, and a thalitarian in Latin. I think it's Greek, actually. Thalos is a word that means thrive. It describes like a little plant that's growing. And I think with the way that we eat, I think that if we really want to thrive, eating foods that are natural, you know, foods that have grown or have whatever into like a natural food product that's not processed is really the way to eat. And we'll talk more about that later, but it's not just food.
Right.
There are other things with the intake and the eye that we'll talk about.
So start with T. The T in Thrive.
T, yep.
Let's break down the 6 pillars, and then we're going to go more in depth in future podcasts. We'll break down each one even further.
Yeah. Just a 30,000-foot view for each of these, just to kind of whet your appetite a little bit. But these are all super important.
Right.
And actually, it's funny. I think we're talking about the most important one first, and I think you and I talked about this earlier. If I was talking to someone, and I have talked to people like this in the hospital as an ER doctor, the super unhealthy. I hate the doctor, but they had a health crisis, and they're like, okay, doc, I'm done.
I got to do something.
I always hated doctors, but now I need help.
Yeah.
Now that I'm having a heart attack, how can I be more healthy so I stay alive for my family? You know, that's a huge motivator for us, a health crisis. Wouldn't it be great if we can figure this out before a health crisis? I mean, if you can actually, before you have a heart attack or before you go into cardiac arrest, it's like have this wake-up call now while you're still healthy.
Yeah.
Right? I wish I would have had this epiphany of sorts when I was in my 20s.
Sure.
It happened in my 40s.
Yeah.
And really to thrive, I think the most important thing I would tell someone, the first thing I would say before, well, you really probably should stop eating fast foods, or you should probably try to get into the gym 3 days a week.
Right.
You know, or mental health, you know, you should really try to work on your depression or whatever, or you should really work on your sleep. I mean, these are all important factors we're going to talk about, but I think the number one most important thing, and the first thing I would tell somebody now as a physician, has nothing to do with medication, has nothing to do with exercise or nutrition, is everything to do with team. I call it the T, which is building a community of people around you. And so that to that person who's not being healthy, obviously, if you just had a heart attack, you take your meds and, you know, have your surgeries, do whatever you need to do to get yourself cleaned up.
Right.
But the first thing I would do, it's like when you build a house, right? You put your foundation down, I think you put the big bricks in first, right? I think the biggest brick to put down first is the community, the team, the people, the support network around you. Find people who love you, find people you love, and really be honest and open about your health. And hey, I've been struggling with my weight. I'm going to talk to my best friend about it, or my wife, or my brother, or whoever, your sister.
Right.
I think getting that community network around you, it may not feel like what's going to make you most healthy, but it's actually going to help you implement all of the other important factors we're going to talk about.
Right.
Because in isolation, I don't think we can be our best. In isolation, we're not optimizing our health. In community, in team, with other people around us, that's when I think we can optimize health. And we have to have that context before we really make any of these other health decisions, in my opinion. When we're alone, things don't go well, typically.
Yeah.
You may be a zebra out there, and you got that self-discipline. You can do all these things alone. You know, Epicurus, I think his name was, he said that the highest form of wealth is self-sufficiency. And I think that's a total lie and a farce, but we believe it in America.
Yep.
And it's sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you know that the Surgeon General actually had he issued a health warning to Americans? The first time in our history, more than half of us feel lonely. 60% of Americans feel lonely. And it was COVID had a lot to do with it, but...
I think that's the biggest problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, social media and electronics, and we feel like we're connecting with people through social media where we're not really connecting. It's very surfacey level. You're seeing what
artificial.
People... Totally artificial. You're seeing what people want you to see online or on social media. You're putting out there what you want, you know. I mean, we've seen it time and time again where people put this facade out there that their life is perfect. And there was just recently a lady on YouTube I saw. She was super popular on YouTube. Anyway, about family and raising family. And she had this huge YouTube channel. Well, it turns out she was torturing her children, had them literally handcuffed in their rooms, like she's been arrested, charged. I think she actually got convicted.
Yeah, you told me about this documentary you watched?
Yes. Yeah. So it's like, it's all that kind of stuff that has created this facade of human connection. And I think community is one of the big reasons why, like, CrossFit has been super successful. Is because it created a community around fitness, right? People showed up at their box and, you know, they held each other accountable. And if you didn't show up for class, somebody's calling you, and they would have barbecues and different events and things. And I think that's one of the huge reasons why it was so successful.
Did you know that people involved in a faith community, like a church or some worship, you know, no specific religion, but people involved in church live on average 7.5 years longer than people who don't participate as part of a faith community.
Yeah.
And I think there are other correlations there, because typically people involved in a faith community don't do certain things, you know.
Right. Their lifestyle is probably exactly.
But the point is, though, I think there is something else about it in addition to that. Is the community of people around you.
For sure. Yeah. No doubt. All right. So team,
big.
and then and then H,
health. Now, okay, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Well,
thought the whole thing was health.
Yeah. But what I mean by that are the health metrics. So, and this is really part of the reason why I like this acronym, because this is something I was missing. But something as a physician is really important. And this is actually a unique part of the acronym, in that this is something you may not know. I think most of what we talk about in the acronym is like, yeah, that makes sense. I know that. It's just that we have a hard time doing it.
Yeah.
That's the issue. We all know what the health choices are.
We've said this before. It's simple. It's not easy.
I love that.
Yeah. It's simple. It is not easy. That's why universal goes with a lot of things.
And you know what's so cool about it? It's like, I'm not making any money here.
Yeah.
Right? This isn't going to make us money. Right. This is we're talking about those simple things that we know are correct. It's just hard to do it. Anyway, this H acronym, health, is unique because it's not something intuitive or is like, yeah, I know that. It's like, no, I didn't know that the American Gastroenterology Society, or whoever they are, changed the age at which we should get a colonoscopy from 50 to 45.
Right.
Or that we should get screened for this cancer at that age, or we should have this, we should know this about ourselves.
Our genetic predispositions.
Do you know what your waist size is? You don't have to tell me, but you know what it is, right?
Yeah.
You know how much you weigh, right?
Yep.
Well, I mean, sometimes people don't weigh themselves. They don't know what they weigh, but
Sure.
they should. You should know how much you weigh. You
Yeah.
should be watching your weight.
So the health thing really goes back to having some sort of a primary care physician or
That's
somebody
exactly
that you
right.
can go and get a health checkup. Luckily with the fire department, I'm very lucky with my fire department. We do this once a year
Yeah.
where we go in and we go through a battery of tests, blood tests, urinalysis. We do chest x-rays, 12 leads.
Yep.
And then we can, they do drug all the labs and then
Right.
we can follow up with a physician. So kind of know what's your cholesterol at,
Right.
what's your good and bad cholesterol, what does that mean,
Right.
right? What's your blood pressure, what's your heart rate, what's your VO2 max, like all these different things. It's overall picture of health.
That's right. All these health metrics are important factors to understand, and that's what we'll talk about in that H part of the acronym. And that's I think kind of that's like the house cleaning. It's like it's no fun to go clean up and organize your garage, but those are certain things you
Well,
just have
unless
to
you're
have.
OCD like me, I love cleaning up my
That's true. I struggle with that.
Oh,
My
I love
garage
it.
is-
Oh, that's like.
But I do like
It's
cleaning.
very cathartic to me to go out my garage and organize my.
Well, see,
garage.
my garage is like it just gets messier and messier and messier, and then I get to a certain point where I organize it, and it's like a fresh breath of fresh air, right? And it's like, oh, this is awesome.
No, see, I'll organize as I go.
So if you can organize these things in your life and have them in place, you don't have to worry about it anymore.
Well, and really that's a big part of it because these are all these things, again, going back to the idea of it's simple, it's not easy, right?
Yep.
Is they're really small incremental changes that you make every day.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you just live and eat whatever you want, don't exercise for 6 months, you can't just say, okay, today I'm going to clean it up. Like, no, it doesn't work like that. It is everyday decisions that you make that make a big impact on your life.
That's right. And I think a lot of these every component of this acronym we're going to talk about of our health is kind of like having tools in your shed, right?
Exactly.
It's like you got to sharpen them so when you need them, the tools are ready to go, right?
That's right.
You don't sharpen them, oh, you know what, I need to mow the lawn. I hope it starts.
Yeah, exactly.
Hope a
I didn't put
lawnmower
gas
starts.
in it. Yeah, exactly. You got to maintain it. Maintenance is huge.
Yeah.
All right, so THR, what's our R stand for?
R is rest or restoration.
Kinda what I
Rest.
figured.
It's not just sleep though. It's giving our body the rest it needs, and obviously sleep is a huge part of our to me, and I think the human body can live longer without food than it can without sleep.
Yes.
We need it. Our body. I mean, this is why. In torture, torture techniques, sleep deprivation is the best tool we
Absolutely.
have. If you really deprive someone of sleep, it is absolute torture.
It's days and they're going crazy.
And you may think to yourself, oh, I stayed up for 3 days. I was fine. No, you didn't really stay up for 3 days because we get these things called micro sleeps that are actually restorative.
Yeah.
But if I'm actually stimulating you, where you don't even get a micro sleep, you will feel a level of pain and stress. It's funny. I was actually reading about this, and I should have researched this a little bit more carefully so I could say it now. But there was a guy that set the world record for longest time he stayed awake. But I would wager to guess that guy didn't fully stay awake. He had micro sleeps because, even a moment of like, whoa, I just lost touch where it was. That's even restorative.
When you're driving down the road, whoa, what just
Exactly, yeah. Be careful.
Yeah.
Anyway, so rest is huge. We're going to talk about that in our rest podcast, and it's again not just actual sleep and naps, and then we'll talk a lot about the sleep hygiene. We'll talk about actually sleep anchoring. I mean, there's a lot of ways in the fire service that we can actually help get better sleep with the interrupted schedule that we have, which we'll talk about. Right. But restoration, though, has more to do with than sleep, because sometimes what we need, and a lot of faith communities will call it meditation or go into solitude. There's something restorative about getting away from the busyness. I was just talking to a friend of mine. It was funny. It was a fire chief, and I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this, but Compton Fire, really nice guy, and he's actually close to where I went to school. And there was this place that we both knew about, a very special trail over by this fire station that went up to the top of a hill with this big white cross at the top. And I used to work out when I was a decathlete. I would run up this hill to get a nasty workout. It killed me.
Yeah.
My quads were just burning.
like Walter Payton trucking up the hill.
It's a famous hill where I went to college, up in the foothills in the Sierra Madres. And I part of why I like to do it alone was that solitude of being alone and alone with my thoughts and getting away from the busyness of life and really spending time alone thinking my own thoughts.
Yeah.
A friend of mine says it's really healthy for you to get bored from time to time.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Because we're so busy, right?
Yes.
So that's restorative too.
Yep.
So we'll talk more about that later. Meditation, solitude, getting out of the rat race for just a little while is so good for you. And
Right.
if you implement that into your daily life, I think you're really going to find some health benefits. So that's the R.
That's the R. And then we got I. You touched on it a little bit earlier.
Intake.
Yeah. And it's not just food.
No.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people will think, is it's just food that you're shoveling into your body. But no, it's what you're watching, what you're listening to, like garbage in, garbage out, right?
Yep. I told you the story about the lawnmower. You want to say the story? Or do you want
About you fixing it, or which story?
No, my dad told me. He said, Erik, son, you're getting older.
I don't think you did tell me.
I think you're ready to mow the lawn.
Okay.
And so I said, all right, I'm getting older. I'm old enough to mow the
I got
lawn.
responsibilities.
My first job actually was a lawn mowing company. I was probably 12 or 13, and I $5.
You actually had a company? Because I just went to neighbor, and they
That's
paid
what
me
I
$10
did.
bucks.
That's
To,
what I
okay,
did.
yeah.
I had $5 a lawn.
Yeah. Oh, you got 5? I got 10.
10?
Yeah.
I should have hired you. I'm not a businessman, so I
Priced
got
yourself.
$5 a lawn. I felt pretty good. Maybe my lawns were smaller where I lived. I don't know.
Oh, they were wetter for sure up in the Pacific Northwest. So intake.
Oh, but yeah. So
Yeah,
the
so
lawnmower,
what's the story?
lawnmower.
Yeah.
So my dad said, "You ready to mow the lawn?" And so
Yeah.
I said, "All right, I'm gonna do it." And then I couldn't start it, and he said, "Oh, you need to put gas in it." And so I put gas in it. And I was like, "It won't start." And he came out, and he couldn't start it either. And then he looked at the gas can. I grabbed the paint thinner can. I put paint thinner in it, destroyed the motor, and we ended up buying a new lawnmower. My dad wasn't too happy. So I guess I wasn't ready. You know me, so that's totally par for the course for me, right? I'm a doctor. Anyway, but I like to tell that story because that's a lot of what I as intake is.
Sure.
You know, we're putting paint thinner into the motor.
Yep.
But our body, like we said at the beginning of our podcast, is a lot. It's really, really an amazing healing machine.
Right.
So we can put that paint thinner in the motor, and it heals and gets better. But we're damaging the motor, right? Mm-hmm. So if let's just say instead of a lawnmower, it's a Ferrari in your garage. I give you a Ferrari. Do you think you're going to be careful about what gas you put in
You better believe
and tuning it up, putting the right oil? Are you going to go down to the oil can handlers for $19.99? Maybe I shouldn't have said that because I think that's an actual company. But like the corner oil change place.
Yeah.
No, you're going to go take it to the Ferrari dealership.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anyway,
You're not going to take it to Billy Bob to have him work on the transmission.
But that's what we're going to talk about with intake. With the I, we're going to get into the food, but not even the air we breathe.
Right.
Even the
Well, and I think, again, what we're looking at, the social media stuff,
Yep.
right? What we watch on TV or whatever, you know, all that kind of stuff really does affect us.
the stuff we put on our skin, not just tattoos, but I mean, the lotions. There are things that we do that are really potentially harmful that we need to be really trying to live cleanly. And that's what the intake is all about. So V, vitality.
Yeah.
And so this is when we're going to get into mental health.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much to say here. But just I think that keeping care of our brain, trying to live where we feel at peace and content with our way our life is and going and giving ourselves grace.
I'm not very good at that one.
No, I'm not either, actually. I
really
really
bad at that
struggle. When I make a mistake, I really... When I messed up with Remember we were filming a podcast and then I deleted files and forgot to focus. I'm like,
Yeah.
I beat myself up. But we need to give ourselves grace. We need to be kind to ourselves, positive self-talk. There's something to say about anxiety and depression and being mentally, at peace, really. I believe there's a lot to that. It's one thing to exercise. It's one thing to eat good food, right? But I think that taking care of our brain and our mental health is more important than the food we eat or the exercise. Those are really good things.
Right.
The problem is that they're really easy to measure.
Yeah.
It's like easy to go to the gym and lose weight.
Yep.
It's easy to eat less food and count your calories and your macros and be more healthy, right?
Right.
I was joking around with a friend of mine, and I said, man, wouldn't the gym be a kind of a silly place as if this was not a physical workout place, but a mental workout place? And like, man, that guy's buff,
Yeah.
physically.
Yeah.
But like from a mental health perspective, if
Right.
we could somehow see a physical manifestation of our mental health and think, wow, that guy's a mental health stud. Look at those muscles of mental health.
Yeah.
We don't see those things, so it's not as urgent for us. I mean, if you got big love handles and you can't fit into your jeans anymore, you're going to be motivated to lose weight, right? But our mental health is so hidden and so private and so invisible in many ways, right? I can hide the fact that I'm depressed and anxious physically. I can hide it and fake it.
Yep.
But I think being honest and open and vulnerable, being authentic about how we are from a mental perspective, it ties back into team, but it's more important than what we eat or what we do for exercise.
Well, I think all these things, and exercise, you've said multiple times, is the last one.
It's the E, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But I think all of these things are tied together, right? When you're talking about overall health and wellness, your intake is important not only to your physical body, but also to your mental health,
Yep.
right? Exercising. I know my wife can tell if I have not worked out in a day, usually.
Yep.
Sometimes if it's the afternoon and I'm grumpy, she'll sometimes ask me like, "Did you work out today?" And she knows that like I work out almost as much for my emotional mental health as I do my physical health.
Yep.
Like I feel like it's kind of whether it's my OCD of I didn't check that off the box today, right? If I didn't work out, I feel like I've got a checkbox missing, which for me is important, right? That's important to me. And so, but all of these things, what we eat, the air that we breathe, the relationships that we have, the exercise that we do, all of these things play into our overall health and wellness, right? I mean, I would think so.
Well, I'm glad you said that because they are all interconnected. And where you have a hard time forgiving yourself if you don't check that box, I have no problem.
Yeah.
If I don't check a box, because that's not my personality style, right?
Exactly.
But my problem is that I'm not organized to stick with something, so I have to learn to check the box so I can do it. You and I are very
Wired
different,
differently,
but that's why I think part of why we work so well together,
Right.
is that you're very organized of thought, and then I'm a little more spontaneous and less organized.
Yeah, you're a dreamer.
Yeah, and when I'm in charge of the podcast, I forget to focus and I delete the.
And I have a checklist on my phone of what we have to do.
But then again, back to team, right? You make me better. You help me to do things. My wife and I work together that way too. We're better together. We have a team of people here at ACE, Axene CE, that we work really well together, that team aspect. But,
Yeah.
But they're all connected. But exercise,
Yep.
I think I love how you said that really plays into the vitality and it plays into some of the health metrics. It plays into team. It all is related.
Absolutely.
Specifically with exercise, though, I think that's there aren't a lot of things in the literature that are all cause mortality benefits, but exercise helps so much with everything.
Yeah.
If you want to live longer, start exercising.
Well, and especially with our jobs in the U.S., where most of our jobs are sitting most of the day, right? Not a lot of people are out there doing physical manual labor jobs where you're up and you're moving, right? Even as firefighters, if you're getting calls and you're at a busy station, you're up and moving, but you might be sitting a lot, and that's not good. And there's a lot of talk nowadays about how firefighters are basically like professional athletes.
Yep.
We should have a level of fitness at a professional athlete level because of what we demand of our. I mean, there's probably, from a doctor perspective, probably not much more you can do that's bad for yourself than being in REM sleep and all of a sudden tones are going off and you're going from a heart rate of 50 to throwing on 60, 70, 80 pounds of gear and running into a structure fire and your heart rate's now 180, right? Yeah. That's probably not really good for you in the long run.
No.
Right? So physical fitness is a huge factor for our all of our first responders.
Especially
not
in the
just
fire community, because there's a certain amount of fitness you need to have to do your job, right? It's a
yeah,
responsibility to the community.
I think like PD, obviously they're carrying around, vests and belts and, they've got to go run EMS. Back and shoulders and lifting injuries are a huge problem. So definitely all of these are tied together like we talked about. And we're going to go through each one.
Right. And I think we agree on one thing. We all want to thrive.
Yes.
You can define that as you want, but I want, and you and I want to help people to thrive. That's the purpose here.
That's a better way to finish it.
Be safe out there.
See you in the next one.
Thank you for listening to EMS, the Erik and Matt Show.